Welcome to the Empower LEP podcast. I'm your host, Jana Parker. I'm a licensed educational psychologist. I'm a group practice owner, and I am the owner and a mentor at Empower LEP. I also have a cold, so I sound amazing today. Today I hosted Christopher Ponce. He is the school psych guy on social media, and he hosts a podcast, The School Collective. I met him at NASP. We had spoken prior to that, but he is just a fantastic guy. He is from Texas. He's earning his doctorate right now. He is a school psychologist, but also has a private practice where they do contract assessments, multidisciplinary team assessments, and they do trainings. And he's just moving and shaking over there in Texas. So we had a great time talking about NASP. I have coughing fits. We have Milton, my dog, kind of making some cameos. My brain has been a little mushy, but I really wanted to get Chris on and talk right after we came back from NASP because we reflect on that. It was such a great experience and we wanted to share it with you. So as always, I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. This episode is brought to you by Marketing Momentum, the next live course we're hosting through Empower LEP. If you know anything about me, you know that I am a horrible DIYer. I don't have a creative bone in my body. If you've been listening to me, you also know that marketing is extremely important for psychologists venturing into private practice, and this includes your online presence. I have gone through 4 iterations of my practice's website in 5 years, and I don't want you to have to do the same thing. So I'm bringing my marketing guru, Emily Gray, straight to you. Marketing Momentum is a 12-week live training program crafted exclusively for psychologists. In just 6 sessions, you will learn how to be seen as an expert in your field. You'll map out an engaging website that attracts clients. You'll learn how to get found on Google so clients can contact you, and you'll learn how to attract clients you love working with. As a bonus, you are going to receive professionally designed private practice social media templates valued at $250. The total value of this program is $1,400, but we're bringing it to you for only $499 or 3 payments of $199. The live session dates run every other week starting March 18th and will be held Tuesdays from 4:30 to 6. Visit empowerlep.com/momentum to get more details and to sign up. Welcome back to the Empower LEP podcast. I am your host, Jana Parker, and I'm here today with Christopher Ponce. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how are you doing? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for asking, by the way. Like, having cross-promotional for podcasts is always nice, and just having a good conversation with other people is always fascinating to me. So thank you. It's my pleasure, not yours.
Oh, thank you. No, I feel exactly the same way, and I am just loving having all the conversations where I get to talk to inspired people in the field. And, you know, this is primarily a podcast for people who are trying to make a transition from public school into private practice as school psychologists. But what I have found is that everybody has a different path, and people are doing some really cool things with their skills in business and just in kind of creative ventures. And I think that you're going to be a really great person to talk to because you have quite a few things going on over there in Texas that I think other people will find inspiring. So thanks for joining me.
Well, let's get through it first. Let's not jump the shark here. Right?
This conversation is going to be so great. Just wait. Okay, well, I am really happy to have you on right now because we just are coming off of NASP 2025, which was amazing. And you and I were able to connect there and have a really great conversation. And I think this happened with so many people. And so I wanted to, before we get into you, I really wanted to brief about NASP because you're the first person that I'm connecting with after the fact. And I want to talk about our experiences.
Yeah, so NASP was interesting for me. So this is the first time I've gone since it was in San Antonio, and I have no idea when that was.
That was
frank with you.
That was a while ago. I was there.
Yeah. Well, I was there too, but that's because I live there. Easy for me to go there.
Yeah.
And not only was this the first time since I've been to NASP since then, it was also I'm in a NASP leadership position. I head up the AAPI MAC subcommittee.
Can you say what that is?
So,
Can you?
the Asian American Pacific Islander subcommittee. We're part of the multicultural committees, which are a bunch of, there's like 5 or 6 of us that head up. They're kind of all focused around ethnic minorities and school psych based. So we have Amina, which is Arabian, Middle Eastern, North African. We have the African diaspora. We have the Latina subcommittee, and then the Indigenous population subcommittee.
Huh.
And so if you're interested and you're part of those groups, just reach out. It's all on the website, on the NASP website. But, we just basically just advocate for whichever group, whichever acronym you fall under, right? So it's interesting for me not only just to go back, but also to go back in a position, because that means there's added stuff. It wasn't just me going and attending conferences and sessions and things like that, right? Like we had certain meetings we had to go to. We had, our DEI town hall where we talk about how are we pushing and kind of working towards increasing diversity within our field and double downing on that stuff. And so it was interesting to be there and kind of connect with people and see a bunch of people like you, for instance. Like we first met on social media, right? So to actually see that these people exist and like you exist, not just, a spammer that created Instagram, right?
Yeah.
To troll people. So
Right.
it was really cool to see people. That was my favorite part. And I know we're going to talk about sessions, but my favorite part was just meeting people that I had known for a while, but now I could actually meet you in person. So what about for you? What was your kind of favorite part?
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up about social media and meeting people in real life, because I really feel like this was the first year, even though social media has been around a long time, I really feel like this was the first year where that aspect of it was so broad. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was at NASP wasn't I?
What was the last year?
God. So just for everybody, like my brain isn't really working right now because I've been sick since I got back from NASP. So my memory is shot and I'm not thinking straight. However, it was totally worth it, but I have been sick. But last year was in New Orleans. New Orleans. Okay. Yeah, it was in New Orleans. But I feel like even last year, I wasn't like, oh, I wonder if someone from social media is going to be here. It was like, I knew the people that I knew, some people I knew from social media, but it wasn't such a thing where there were so many more people who you might know because of their presence on social media. So I think that was the biggest difference for me. Yeah.
So, and this might just be giving unfortunate insight into me, but like just going to a conference by myself is very terrifying. So like I went with one of my friends, Brooke Roberts, who we host a podcast together. We'll talk about that later. Yep. But also like being part of all these different subcommittees, like gave me already a rock and a connection at the conference. So like, I think it's like going there is big for me just because of connection. So whether it's like a state conference or a national conference or something like that, like I'm going with an intention, but just to go by myself, that's terrifying. I wouldn't like, I'm going to go to a conference. Like that's hard. It would be like, okay, Jana, do you want to go to a conference?
Yeah.
In a couple months? Like I would need that part of it to be, that conversation needs to happen first.
I'm usually going to these conferences by myself, but I feel like I've been in the field for so long. I know I'm bound to know people. Milton is being so annoying. He just wants that squeaky toy. He can't stop. Okay, no, you can't have it right now. You can't have it. I'm in a podcast. You can't have it. Okay, now he's very mad at the person outside. This is the best podcast I've ever done. It's just a person. It's just a person.
Having dogs in anything always increases viewership. So
that's true. That's true. Everybody will need to go to YouTube and check out my dog who just made a cameo. And now he's like barking at the person who's outside. Milton, no, thank you. Okay, so what I was going to say was I go to conferences a lot by myself. And actually once I went to so I always think I'm going to know somebody, and I do. I know people all over, and I love just like like we did for lunch. Like I met you, then we sat at the keynote together, then we went to lunch and met more people, right? So I love that you kind of like fly by the seat of your pants. You just kind of hook up with different people who you might not even have any idea who they are, but you're all like-minded, you're all in the same profession, you know you're going to have great conversation, and you expand your network. And so I love going to conferences. I usually am by myself, but I never feel like I'm by myself because of all the people that I know I'm going to meet and connect with. And I'll tell you oh, sorry, go ahead.
This last one?
Yeah, 6,000. It was crazy. That keynote was so crazy, seeing all of the school psychologists in the room.
I turned around and I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
To have to get up and talk in front of all of them, and the way that Sahar did, like.
Yeah, she blew it out of the park.
But sorry, continue though.
No, that's okay. And she inspired me to wear sneakers when I gave my presentation on Friday too. I was like, if she can wear sneakers, I can wear sneakers. But so the one time I went to a conference that was outside of school psychology, it was actually the LDA conference, which is actually happening right now. I met my Learning Disabilities Association. Okay. And there's actually quite a few people from our field who participate in that. But the audience is lots of different, it's like a multidisciplinary audience. It's like a few school psychologists, special educators, teachers, parents. What's really interesting is that some of the people who are on their board and who do a lot of presentations there are like George McCloskey, Peter Isquith, Don Flanagan, Scott Decker, lots of people from our field where you're like, oh, Steve Pfeiffer is doing this one too. Right. You go like, oh, these people, it's not just school psychology. But that's kind of where we as school psychologists tend to stay, is with school psychology conferences. But actually there's more out there. There's more. But where I met my co-presenter that, we just spoke at NASP, and we talk about the science of reading and assessment for school psychologists that aligns with the science of reading. I met her at LDA. I went completely by myself. I did not know, this was 2 years ago. I didn't know anybody, but I knew that I wanted to see what it was like to be at a conference not totally directed towards school psychologists. Yeah. And she gave a presentation. So that's where I met her. And I was like, hey, afterwards, I give presentations on this too in California. And she's like, I'm from New York. And she was absolutely amazing. And now we're teaming up and talking at NASP. And
but what's your guys' time difference? So having to connect is probably such a pain in the ass.
We don't actually, it's 3 hours, but like it works out. It works out.
You make it work, right?
Yeah, we make it work.
So I think one of the benefits of being a school psych and going to school psych conferences, and it's a double-edged sword, but our job is so vast and so broad that you really can find a session on anything, right?
Yeah.
I didn't go to any sessions that had anything to do with assessment. And I know there's plenty out there, and I filled my time, right? But I think that's kind of a fun thing about our job is like, I can find something very specific that I want to go to that's counseling based or autism based or collaboration or, parent training or whatever. But it allows you to like not get bored, which I think is a huge benefit of our job.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are, like you said, there are tons of different kinds of things you can go to at NASP. And through conferences like this, I think is how we as school psychologists start to specialize or generalize, right? Like I usually go to talks on assessment because that's my area of interest, you know? And so when I go and look at the lineup, that's what I'm looking for, you know. But you can find so many things that are going to meet your needs. But I also think that that's how you start to like really learn more in the areas that do interest you. Yeah. And I think it's especially important if you are thinking about going into the private sector for any reason, you can really start to capitalize on where you feel like your strengths are. Whereas when you're in the schools, you have to be a generalist.
Right.
That's part of what I'm giving a parent training tonight. And part of what I want to make sure I let parents know is that school psychologists have to be generalists, you know? So despite our desire to want to do everything amazingly well, we all kind of specialize in something different, and we're responsible for just absolutely everything that happens all day, every day, no matter how many assessments we have open.
There's just too much. There's too much. Like, it's too hard to be perfect at everything. And so your change is going to go into one different pocket or another.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so like it's not anything that's our fault. It just is what it is.
Right.
You know? So like for those who are perfectionists, this job may be a little bit difficult because you're just not going to be able to be that type of person, to be frank.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that you noticed or you learned pretty early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also, and then I kind of made my own jobs, or I kind of searched out the kind of school psych job that was going to be a good fit with me and my skill set. And where I live, there is no shortage of jobs. So it was always, you know, if I wasn't getting what I needed from where I was, or I wanted something a little bit different, I would go and search out a different district and see kind of what the experience was going to be like there, you know.
Let me ask you real quick about the California side of things.
Yeah.
So what's your guys' primary role if you were meant to, if you were to define it, like, hey, I'm going to be doing all these things, like, how would you sell me on going to California? Because is it primarily assessment? Is it primarily collaboration?
I would say it's primarily assessment.
Okay.
How about you? Oh, I do. I love it. Okay. But I also am not a school psychologist anymore because I'm only in private practice. Fair. And I found it difficult, even loving assessment and having that be the thing that I like about it the most. I still started to find it really difficult to fit kids into ed code eligibility boxes based on what I know about learning disabilities and, you know, and other things, right? So it became more challenging for me to be okay with kind of being I started to get a bit disgruntled with the system.
Is it just because you guys are being pigeonholed, you think? I mean, I know it's a bigger question than that, right? Like, things that are required of us on a daily basis are leading to burnout extensively.
Yeah.
You know? So, like, if you don't like assessment and you're in California or Texas, because this is very similar, like, you're going to be doing that a lot, and you can't stop that, you know?
Right.
So, do you feel like that was part of it?
I think there are so many issues with the system as a whole that are kind of uncontrollables that I felt like I ultimately needed to be in a position where I could do the job I wanted to do instead of being stuck in a system that was so broken. And so I guess I'll give you a couple of examples. I don't know how this interview turned into Jana's experience.
You put two podcasters on one.
I know.
So it's natural for me. But I think
Okay.
it gives insight to like what practice is like for you and why
Yeah.
you transitioned. But then we'll come back to me afterwards. Don't worry. We'll always bring it back.
Okay, good. like wait a second. So I think number one, um the multi-tiered systems of support wasn't strong enough for me. And interestingly, um, the last 5 years I was a school psychologist, I worked at an amazing school district, amazing, affluent, um, had every resource. We had 3 reading specialists before kids got to special ed. We had 1 bilingual reading specialist. I mean, we had a full-time EL specialist. Like there was, it was amazing. We were also doing writer's workshop, reading recovery in first grade, and Fontes and Pinnell level literacy intervention in the upper grades. And I thought we had this amazing program. And we did, except that everything that we were using wasn't based on the science of reading. So we had high success rates, but I really think it was because we had amazing staff, and despite the programs, we had a lot of resources, and the families also had resources to go outside of schools to get what they needed. Yeah. And I don't think that that's equitable across, I don't think that there's any equity across like school districts in California, so it leaves.
I mean, much like Texas, it's a vast state.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it. Like, just look at a map. There's a lot of California.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I became a program specialist, and then I was like just cleaning up. Okay, so I don't think that there's enough training for. Then it gave me being a program specialist gave me more insight into how little people are trained to do the jobs that they're doing. So especially special education teachers. I mean, I was in districts where like I saw how easy it was to be like, oh, we'll just flip that person over there. Oh, we have an opening. We'll hire this person who's an intern and put them in this, really intense class. And how are we going to train a person to be an educator, be a special educator, do all the IEP paperwork, do an assessment? I mean, like we're based, and be a teacher of kids who have all different kinds of behavioral and learning challenges, and expect it to work, and then expect their IEP paperwork to be compliant.
And then be mad when they don't do it correctly.
Right. I mean, right. There's so many problems I saw the second I stepped into a more administrative role. And then I was just at IEP meeting after IEP meeting, of which I had not been involved in what had happened up to that point. And I just had to help clean up whatever it was, do damage control, put on I called myself like a program, like a special ed realtor. It was like, this program is going to be great for your kid. This program's, oh, look at this teacher, and then I'd be like, oh, well, I know that teacher's leaving next year, or they're being transferred to this other classroom, but I can't tell the family that, it was like, after a year of doing that, I was like, nope, I'm going to go start my own practice. I need to do the things that fill my bucket and that I know I'm going to like feel like I'm really making a difference. Like I want to do, like we all want to do. And I had enough experience doing that. I had enough experience both in the school setting and already outside the school setting through just doing private practice on the side, that I felt confident to do that. And so I had my dream and my goal. I wanted to have a multidisciplinary practice. And so I stayed in the schools 3 more years full time, but I had made the decision that I was leaving and started my private practice, and then just started building that while I stayed, while I was working full time. Yeah.
And you were going to conferences like NASP.
Yes.
Which I think is a great segue about our favorite sessions.
Perfect. Oh my gosh, you're so good. And so on the NASP front, like I think that meeting people like you said, that you have known online, and now that there are so many more kind of people sharing their knowledge of school psychology with our field on um, social media, it was really great to meet a lot of people who I have only seen virtually and interacted with virtually. So that was definitely a highlight for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had intentions of going there, and separate than just being like a co-chair is, my I'm a doctoral candidate, so my research is in supervision of stool psychs. And some of the forefront researchers are Dr. Mark Swerdlick and Dr. Dennis Simon, and they both had a workshop going on at the convention. And so I had full intentions. That was really was my true focus, was to meet up with them, link up with them. They're both out of Illinois. So being in Texas, I'm never going to be able to see them, so, but being able to have a conversation with like long conversations, especially with Mark, who was phenomenal, and just kind of getting insight into like the literature and research and stuff like that. That was truly the big moments for me. Right. But that's because that's a practical thing, right? That's directly influencing things that I'm currently working on.
Well, how did you set that up?
I just cold emailed them. just
Yeah.
just found their email online. So here's something I've learned. I think you and I talked about this. Is like a lot of these big name people, it seems very scary to go up and talk to them, but when you talk to them, they're just school psychs who've just been doing this longer.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's really all they are. So
Yep.
when I emailed like Mark, for instance, he just sent back a flurry of messages of like, oh, have you looked at this new literature? Have you looked at this? Have you looked at this? Well, let me know when you're at NASP. We meet up a time. We can talk about it. Like, I think they just like to talk about things. And
Absolutely.
seem trepidatious to like have a conversation, but go up to Dr. Faustino, our NASP president. He'll have a 40-minute conversation with you.
Yeah.
Which I did with him a couple weeks ago, and you have soon, right?
Yep. Coming up.
Yeah, they love just talking about school psych stuff. So, if you see somebody that you're like, oh my God, that's who it's say, right? Go say hi. They'll talk to you.
Yeah. I mean, especially
A few pretentious people in our field. They
Yeah.
are there though. Don't get me wrong. But they are
They are there. I know some of them. But even even pretentious people will talk to you because they want to talk about the stuff that they're doing, Yeah, or selling. Exactly. And that was another thing that I've learned over the years is that, a lot of the things that are put in front of our faces are because they are marketing certain things to us as school psychologists. And so it limits our knowledge of what else is even out there. And then we think that we're kind of limited to certain assessment tools, for example, but we're not, So I have been, for example, exposed to more assessment tools that are marketed to speech and language pathologists, but that evaluate a lot of things that we as school psychologists evaluate, but actually better.
Yeah.
So more in depth. And I'm sorry.
It's like more nuanced, right?
Yeah.
It's very specific towards those things.
Yeah, and it makes it's just kind of astounding. I also have learned that there's a lot of the different aspects. I'm not going to say this right because my brain is a mess, but the different like reading researchers and school psychologists, and they're not really talking that much.
No.
So one of my favorite workshops that I went to was, hold on a minute. I don't want to mess this up. So I'm actually going to look at this. Oh gosh, give me a second. It was on dyslexia. It was making sense of dyslexia from screening to diagnosing with Michelle Hosp and Rachel Brown. It was so good. That was my favorite session.
Was it what? How long was it?
Hour and 20
Okay, so
minutes.
normal 80-minute one or whatever.
80 minutes. Yeah.
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 And
Yep.
so, what did you come out of that with? Right, like I'm not asking for details, but just is it like you feel like you got a new framework, a new insight, a new lens to see it?
Well, I then gave a talk on Friday, and I think that the two of them were really complementary to each other. So I think that the message that they were sending was very similar to the message that I'm sending. But what I really appreciated about them was that they've been so involved in the research and it just, um, it's just so amazing to listen to. I will go to a dyslexia talk and listen and listen and listen, and then I give them too, right? But like, um, it was I just love listening to people who have had the same kind of aha moments as I have, and then have really gone and done something about it, like research wise. Like, I wish that I had had the aha moment to go back and really study reading research and like get a doctorate and things like that earlier on in my career. um, I've always felt like I needed to have more insight into why what we saw was going on is going on, with a reader. And it's taken my whole career to get to where I am now.
I think that's a huge barrier to our field. Is we expect our people to like learn and gain insight, stuff like that, but the opportunities for research are limited, and you also have to find it out on your own. Like I'm in a doctoral program. I wasn't doing research before I came into this doctoral program. I
Right.
went listened to people talk, and I have to trust them that they're telling me the right stuff. So I wish there was more opportunities for that. But the flip side of that is our job is so damn jam packed. Anyways, you're going to be doing it
Yeah.
on your own time. So like you don't. Where's that opportunity?
Right. Right.
Oh, you just have to trust, I guess, or go into a doc program, or just find time throughout your day to do it. You know.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I've started to do, is just listen to people talk who are not just, I guess, selling test kits, and are just more involved in the reading research. And so there are a couple of school psychologists who do that. And then there are also there's a whole field of reading researchers who I am, now listening to a lot of podcasts and reading their books, and just kind of getting involved more in that way. So I know more as a school psychologist about uh, that.
I think that's something very interesting you kind of pointed out is for maybe our early career people that are listening. I say this a lot. It's like when I have interns or stuff like that. When you go to a training, try to really figure out what that training is about. Are you going to be learning about research, or are you going to be listening to somebody who's selling you a product?
Yeah.
Because I think that, I mean, and if you're very pro that product, then yeah, go to it, right? Like I'm a WISC guy, WISC. Like I will go to all those trainings. I like them. Right? But if I'd be going to a place that was going to be selling me the WISC, right? Like that's what those things are. And that's perfectly fine. That's their job. But I think what you're bringing up, like the research people, the people who are diving into doing meta-analysis, which is just looking at all the research and trying to piece out information, that's where you're going to really learn some stuff from.
Yeah.
Right. And it's more broader, right? I'm learning about reading instead of I'm learning about the Christopher Jana, reading assessment.
Right. Exactly.
The CJRA.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. The CGRA.
I don't know if that's something that's like, it's that kind of what you're implying is like you're going to these research sessions and you're getting insight from them, which is helping you become a better practitioner. Yeah.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. What was a highlight for you?
So besides it was my Thursday workshop on supervision, which by two people who are forefront researchers in supervision. So phenomenal thing is they started off with just speaking to the lack of formal programs for supervision of school psychologists, whether it's interns or practicum. And then they went into something they develop, right? But I'm okay with that because I wanted to know that, right? Like this
Yeah.
sucks if that's very specific. And the flip side of it is if you look up, I mean, if you just go to Google Scholar, there's no, there's one program, the DEP model, which is developed by these guys. So that's the issue is that it is part of our job. You know this, you do this, right? You supervise.
Yep.
And unless you're an experienced supervisor, you're kind of just winging it. That's really just kind of what is going on is like, there's no lesson, there's no program, there's no developmental thing unless you are experienced or you already know that there's a model that exists.
Right. I mean, and then you're just like, oh yeah, it's actually hard for me to be a supervisor because I'm so far into the field that it's difficult to remember what it was like when I was first starting out.
Yeah.
And it's
in September of your first year.
Right.
Not a lot.
Right. And so then I'm like, well, gosh, I really hate the district's template, but I don't like, you have to first learn kind of how to write a report within the confines of whatever the district is telling you need to do. And you probably don't even really understand what it is that you're evaluating yet anyway.
No, you're just going through the motions, but it's expected, right? You're still learning. There's two things that people typically don't understand is one, as a supervisor, you're moving from teacher at the beginning of the year to consultant at the end of the year. That should be your trajectory, right?
Yeah.
You're teaching Chris. Again, you should be collaborating with Chris. And Chris is coming to you with cases and things like that. And you should be allowing me to figure out and problem solve with you as a guider or as like a guider or a moderator or whatever you want to call it. The other thing is, and this is an issue that I've noticed, is supervisors don't always teach school psychs this in the most generalized way, right? They'll teach them to like, here's something very specific we do. I'm not even talking about report writing, but here's something very specific we do in our district, right? But that's with the assumption that Chris, your intern, is going to be staying in your district afterwards. I need to market, or you need to create Chris into be a school psych who is equitable to all districts.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't come back on you, but there's a bit of I trained Chris when I go, guess who's writing me a reference letter as my supervisor? They're going to read it. They're going to be like, well, they interviewed great. Let's hire them. 4 months in, they're like, they can't do this job. Who the hell trained this guy?
Right.
And they're like, oh, it was her, right? So if we ever have somebody trained underneath her before, next time we're just not going to hire them. So there's that aspect as well. As you should be creating a school psych who can get a job anywhere, not just in your district.
Right.
And they're also not your assistant.
Right. Well, that's what's actually been pretty cool about the way that this district that we contract with is doing it is the intern, like we're not on campus. We don't even work in their district. But there are school psychologists who can help them on campus, each camp. Right. Yeah. And then we do weekly, their weekly 2 hours of supervision with them. Mm-hmm. And we read their reports, we give them feedback. And so what we get to do is teach them how to be good school psychologists without teaching them how to be that district's good school psychologist. When they say, when I'm like, oh, this is like a district question, then I have them go to the district and ask them because I'm like, I don't know, we're not in the politics of that.
You got to go to them for that.
Exactly. And here are like different ways that this could work out. And you're going to have to listen to what the director says that you're going to do in this case and then do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I love that. It's like a hands-off approach. You're from outside the bubble, but you're still helping and you're developing and you're creating.
Right.
You're molding this young individual into being a phenomenal school psych.
Yeah. I wrote like a bunch of notes on a report yesterday that she gave me, but I was writing a bunch of notes on the academic achievement portion, which of course in California she didn't do. But I said, I put that there. She called me like right away and she was like, you put a lot of notes on her section. I said, yeah, because I want you to understand the kinds of questions I have when I'm reading the academic achievement section of somebody else's report, because you have to be thinking these things. And now she's like, well, what should I do about it? I said, well, now you can go back to that person. You can blame me, your supervisor.
Your supervisor will tell people that. Tell them that I told you to do that.
Yeah. And you can ask questions. You can say, I'm really like wondering why you said 81 is average, like, because this doesn't really make sense.
Damn it.
Yeah. Oh, and I can't remember if I told you this or not, but my interns program has monthly optional meetings for supervisors. So it's like a monthly supervisor meeting that I can attend every month.
Yeah. I mean,
Isn't that cool?
That's better than most universities give their students coming up. There's no formal supervisor training.
Right.
Unless you go to like University of Illinois, where those two gentlemen work at. They put on one every single year that I'm going to attend this year, and I'm so excited. But nobody has like a formal training to learn how to be a supervisor.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the best thing that you went to. Final words about NASP. Like, if no one has gone to NASP before, if somebody's listening and they've never gone before, kind of give me your like.
So if you want my honest answer,
yes,
be honest, or really look into the city that you're going to, because one of the issues with NASP, and this is, I'm sure they'll admit this too, it is a financial burden. It's not easy to go to NASP. It requires time off work, time away from your family. You're not going there to party. You're going there to learn and get all this information. So if you get to go once every 5 years, make sure the city that you're going to is worth it. This isn't an anti-Seattle thing. It's just like, when you're looking at them, don't just go to the next one. Go to one that's like, all right, I have no problem spending 5 days in Chicago and spending money and doing all that type of stuff, because it is a barrier to go, right? And that has to be acknowledged. It's a privilege to go to national conferences, but the flip side of it is, there's no other place you're going to be with 5,000 plus school psychologists and hanging out and learning and getting information and connecting and learning from the biggest and brightest people in our field, and the ones that are up and coming, right? Like the ones you don't know about, right? Like, go to that random session,
yeah,
right? Because you may be sitting in the room that's the next big test publisher in 10 years, and you got to hear them speak before they were anything.
Yeah.
Right? Go to those doctoral candidate meetings, right? Like the ones where, I'm a student, because they may be leading the field in 10 years as well, right? Go to the reading sessions, right? And sit in that room, right? Go to the ones where you don't know their names, because those people, you guys have incredible information to give out and to learn, because you're in the trenches and you're not selling anything.
Exactly. Yep.
So that would be I don't know, what are yours?
Yeah, and I would say that it's an incredible place to connect with others. The experience as you are in the field longer becomes more of a networking event than a all learning event too. Mm-hmm. I mean, I now at this point, know so many people that I know I'm going to see there. And we can like reminisce, and it's cool to be able to come to a place where you see so many people that you've known now for so many years, and watch the course of their careers and the cool and different things that they're doing.
And go say hi to the people you follow, right?
Yeah.
We like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the same thing, right? Like, you're seeing them visually over the years, and now you get to actually see them in person and say hi to them.
Yeah. And I would also say, if you want to go to NASP, no harm in putting in a proposal yourself to talk about something.
Yeah. Get up in front of that room.
Yeah.
It's scary, but it'll be scary the first few times. So then you'll get used to it. And now it's fun.
Yeah.
All right. You got to put yourself out there.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I had a fabulous time. It was worth me getting the worst cold I've had in many, many, many years. And yeah, it was a great experience. So I want to hear, in the remainder of our time, A little bit about you, what you're doing. I want to hear about because you are a practicing school psychologist. You also have your own business, and then you also have a podcast. So I kind of want to hear about all of that and where you got the ideas for all of it. Um,
So
and
I'm a
yeah,
full-time school psychologist in Texas. Um, I served on our state for many years with my co-patriot, Brooke Roberts, and we started what was initially a training company. Being on the board, like Texas is very big, and I was an area rep. So one of my areas was West Texas. And if you're in Texas, you know that our state conference rotated basically between 4 cities. So Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston. Well, if you're West Texas or North Texas, that's very far for you. It's the same thing I was just saying about NASP, right? There's a financial burden to have to go and do that. And rural school sites are very big in Texas. So we have school sites, like one school site who services 10,000 students. So for them to leave for a week is a big issue.
Yeah.
Right. So what we identified was a gap in training and workshops for West and North Texas people, especially. East Texas is an issue. South Texas actually has a major university, UT, Rio Grande Valley. So they're down there, and so they take care of a lot of the training. But West and North Texas, with the exception of Lubbock, because they have Texas Tech, there's not a whole lot of opportunities. They get to go through things. So what we were thinking about when we initially created this is we'll go to you, right? Like we have connections with all of the major players in Texas. So if you want us to come out and we'll actually put on a training for you and your district, or we have region centers in Texas. I don't know what you guys have. Region centers are basically educational hubs, and there's 20 of them in Texas. So like in the San Antonio area, it's region 20.
Okay.
So there's an actual building where if I have questions, I call the building and say, hey, they have something on there, the compliance person, a school psych, they have everybody there, right?
Yeah.
West Texas has those, but it's so hard to get people to go out there, right? So we're like, we'll just come to you. We'll just do the training for you guys. So we were going out and we were putting on full day trainings for different region centers. We go to districts. And then we started branching off because people were like, oh, well, we have IEEs, right? Independent evaluations, usually like a disagreed evaluation. Can you do those too? And we're like, yes. And so we took a multidisciplinary approach and we go out and do those. We do consultation for different districts. We do collaboration. I've supervised interns in other districts before. So we're an all-encompassing thing. But the biggest thing is that our original name was the School Psych Guys because there were two of us, right? We wanted something that like if you were like in a meeting at your district, you're like, well, we need somebody to come in and do this evaluation. And in our mind, it was like, oh, we'll just call the guys, right? Just call the guys.
I love that.
We weren't just guys, and we weren't just school psychs. And so we created a new name, the School Collective, because that's what we are. We have BCBAs, SLPs, OTs, PTs, AT expert, school psychs, and we will come and we will give you a multidisciplinary viewpoint and perspective on everything that we do. And we're here to help. We really are. That's our biggest thing is we want to help people because not everybody gets the same luxuries that we do being in the major cities in Texas, where we have a district in San Antonio that has over 120 school sites that work in it, right? That's huge, right? Like that's not like the conference time and these trainings. There's a lot of times that these school sites are seeing other school sites. They just don't get to see them, right? I remember putting on monthlies when I was on the state board with Region 15, which is out in West Texas. And they all showed up not because they wanted to hear me talk, but because it was the only time they got to see other school psychs. I remember that. Like the intention was, oh, I'll come up here. I'll tell you what the board is doing. I'll give you some updates. And I got done with that in like 10 minutes. And then the rest of like the 50 minutes, the hour, was just conversation about what's going on in case consultation. And I was like, oh, that's what they want. They don't want to hear Chris talk. They want to listen to each other and just have a conversation with another school psychologist for once.
Yeah.
So connectivity and community is really big here too. And I hope that we're bringing that, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with the podcast. Well, just like yourself, right? We have the School Collective podcast, which you can find everywhere. And it's really about just highlighting people that are doing amazing work in our field that aren't necessarily always a big name, right? We're going to have big name people like you or Peter or whoever on. But then also, guess what? There's a school psychologist in Nebraska who created an SEL program. And we want people to know about them. There's an SLP out of Illinois who serves on an anti-racism committee for their school district or created one. Like, we want to highlight them as well. So it's a little bit of both, right? Because it's collective. We're all together. You're part of the collective. Everybody's part of the collective, and that's just kind of our viewpoint and vision behind everything.
That's awesome. How long have you been doing the podcast?
So funny enough, I hosted a podcast for our state board called the TASP Talks podcast. TASP is TASP, and then Talks, and I did that one for numerous years. And since none of us are on the board anymore, right, we just started our own. So Brooke and I started our own with our other colleague Amy Shatila, and we just put out our 16th episode as of today's recording with you and I. And so we're just jamming through them, trying to knock them out. And we'll take a break after the season's over, and then we'll come back. So, but it's going super well so far. We have a reoccurring segment with one of our friends who is a lawyer, a special education lawyer.
Okay.
We have an episode coming up with somebody who's actually supervising me for my LP, licensed psychologist hours, which is a doctorate level psychologist, and he is an expert on trauma. And I think you should have him on too, because he is fantastic.
Okay.
We have somebody coming on in a couple weeks who is in charge of college accommodations. Come into colleges with disabilities and have to go to that office and like try to get she's the person who's in charge of that stuff. And so she's coming and be like, hey, here's the mistakes you guys are making. And that's not my opinion. It's because I actually work at a major university. And here's what I'm saying no to people on. So like, that's going to be a great one too, because that's something I don't know about that type of stuff very much. So yeah, we're excited. We've been rocking and rolling, and it's been a lot of fun to just have these conversations.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love it. Absolutely.
Yeah. How many episodes are you in?
I'm up at about 60 right now.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
All that cool time you guys have done, and all the information, all the new people you've met in that time span.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that I've done like 60 interviews is crazy. Like I did an episode we dropped an episode every week for all of 2024.
We couldn't do weekly. We do bi-weekly. That's that's a lot.
I know. And then I thought, you know what, for 2025, maybe I won't do so many. And that hasn't happened.
I mean, there's a commitment, right? There's, Malcolm Gladwell has that term connectors, and that's kind of what you are, right? Somebody who's connecting and bringing people together and, creating thorough lines between different people. So you're doing good work, and I think it is noticeable in our field, and we do appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, it is pretty cool to be, it happened a couple times at NASP to be recognized by people who I don't know, just because they've heard the podcast or are like following me in my social media, or I helped them pass the LEP exam and like I don't know who they are. It's very, very cool to like have a bigger influence than like what I know. Yeah. Like firsthand.
Your roots run deep, so don't worry about that. Okay. People know you. But tell me, is it as awkward for you to like slide into somebody's messages for the first time to try to get them to come on the podcast? It's like crafting the perfect message.
No, I don't even. I haven't.
And that's why I'm saying it.
What'd you say? I what?
It's easier for me to like ask you in person.
To
like craft up a message and fit you.
I have not really had difficulty asking people to be on my podcast. I think I am a little bit more hesitant to ask to be on other people's podcasts, which is a goal that I have for this year. Yeah, like I want to be on other people's podcasts this year. And I was just on the Testing Psychologist podcast, which was like the ultimate for me,
Well, besides the collective, which you'll be on in the future. So obviously,
right.
Yeah, up until this point, I get that. Yeah, don't worry, no hard feelings.
Yeah, no, I mean it's been that's I think where I'm like, hey, want to have me on your podcast? But people, it is, I have never had anybody say no. Like everyone's like, yeah, like I would, unless they're like very shy. But
That was
most
exactly why
people,
I had one person say no, but not because they didn't want to. It's because they were very shy,
yeah,
and they actually recommended one of their fellow faculty. They're like, hey, thank you for reaching out. This isn't for me, but I know somebody this is perfect for.
yeah,
And it ended up being great. And I
yeah,
love that person to this day because we served on the board together, and she's like, hey, I don't want you to feel like I was offended or like I was trying to offend you. I'm just getting very nervous and I didn't want to do it. And I'm like, hey, that's perfectly fine.
yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, no, people want to share. And it's great. And I've made a lot of connections doing it. So,
I know we're at the end, but have you ever gone back and listened to your first one?
um,
That's rough. Not yours, but like,
yeah, I haven't done it in a while. Um, yeah,
just listen to it and then listen to one of your recent ones and just hear your like how you've gotten better about it over the years. You know,
yeah.
you have because it's typically just you, right, on yours.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a co-host when I started, and then after a few months, I just went on my own. Yeah,
Yeah, because that's the hardest thing when I go back and listen is us like trying to talk over each other or like not understanding timing, right? So it'd be like, oh no, oh wait, no, you go, no, you go, you go. So
yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that has been nice is that it has just been me for a while. And when I did do it with a co-host, we had like one person would be taking the lead on the interview, and so it worked out pretty well. But the other person might ask questions, but the other person was doing most of the interviewing. But yeah, I've enjoyed being the only one being able to ask all the questions. It feels more connected too, just like with your
rolling our dateline, right? Like
yeah,
you're not grilling me, but we're just having a conversation.
right, yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your social media, and then we can tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, so I am the school tech guy. My name on Instagram, not on Facebook. I also help run the AAPI Instagram account. It's our page for our subcommittee. So if you want any information or news on what we're doing, go follow that one. Go follow me too. It's my page has transitioned over the years. It started off with just normal posts and just everything, and then I tried to get into like the meme game, but I just can't keep up with like school psych memes. Like they're fantastic, which is great. That's their space. And so I went to more like reels and trying to do like funny anecdotal ones. And then the newest thing I'm doing is just taking questions from followers and just answering them. Because I would get them anyways in my messages, right? So it's like, well, it's just like any teacher you've ever had growing up is ask your question because somebody else has that same question.
Right.
Right. And so I don't imply to know everything in the field, but if I can answer a question, I'm going to. And if you have a different opinion or a counterpoint, like message me or put it in the comments. I am very pro healthy debate, right? Like let's have a conversation about why you may think differently. And I am somebody that can also have their mind changed. Like I'm not so steadfast in my opinions on a lot of things that I can't be swayed. So like I love having conversations. I love getting into the nitty gritty about things and just talking about stuff. But yeah, I do like it. I enjoy it. I've been trying to like on the weekends, I completely log out. I'm trying to like disconnect on the weekends. It was right. And I got a family and a wife and kids and stuff like that, and that should be first and foremost. So, but yeah, I will always get back to you if you message me, and then let's have fun. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun and informative, right?
Awesome.
I getting paid for it, so
Right. Yeah. Well, so cool, Chris. I really, really appreciate you coming on this show. This has been a fantastic conversation that has gone so many places, and I look forward to.
We had coughing fits. We had Milton here. We had possibly a leaf blower outside. We had We talked about NAP. We talked about social media. We talked about everything. This has been the all-encompassing one. And really, thank you for asking me to come on. It has been fantastic to like create this friendship with you and
Yeah.
create this connectivity. And so, anytime you want me to come back on and have a conversation about something, please, because I'm always down for it.
Well, thank you so
And
much.
real quick, and for all
Yeah.
your listeners, look forward to our episode
Yes.
where we talk about other things, because we want my people have conversations about what you do for a living. I gave a little taste for it in the beginning about asking about California world, but we really want to know about your transition.
Yeah.
Fantastic and very interesting to hear about and learn about.
Yeah, it's been like, I came in here this morning still like sick, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is my business. So, it's amazing.
This is my wall.
Yeah.
My pictures.
Yes. My dog is here. It's all good. Everything is fine. Also, it's 75 degrees here today in California.
Oh, it gets up to 80 today.
Oh, crazy. Gosh. I'm like, oh yeah, we're no longer in like rain, and we are not in snow. No, it's February in Texas and California, and it's summer.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Chris, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
That is it for today's episode of the Empower LEP podcast. I hope that you found this conversation insightful and inspiring as you navigate your journey in private practice. If you enjoyed the episode, I'd love for you to subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us reach more LEPs and school psychologists who are looking to build their own path in private practice. For more resources and community, you can connect with me at empowerlep.com, on Instagram at EmpowerLEP, on Facebook in the Empower LEP Facebook group, or by email at jana@empowerlep.com. And just a quick reminder, the information shared on this podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered legal, business, or clinical advice. Be sure to consult with the appropriate professionals for guidance on your specific situation. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, you have the skills, you have the knowledge, and you have the power to create a private practice that truly makes an impact.